Okay, well, we're going to continue now with a presentation from Christian Easterday. He's the Managing Director and CEO of Hot Chili Limited. Christian is a geologist and mineral economist with over 25 years experience in the mineral exploration and mining industry. He holds an honors degree in geology from the University of Western Australia. He has held several senior positions and exploration management roles with top-tier gold companies, including Placer Dome, Hill 50 Gold, and Harmony Gold, specializing in structural geology, resource development, and mineral economic valuation. Without further ado, please welcome to the stage Christian Easterday.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's great to be back here for the Rural Symposium 2024. Hot Chili, as a lot of investors here know and a lot of supporters amongst you, has been developing a major copper project on the coastline of Chile. And what's really exciting is that coinciding with this very long journey, 14 years to build a 1 billion tonne project on the coastline, that today, following last year, my presentation at this conference, where we announced the support of Osisko Gold Royalties and an investment there, and the first real economics around what we've been building here for over a decade on the coastline. This year, I'm very, very pleased to be able to speak about really a hidden treasure within Hot Chili's portfolio, which is now allowing the company to be exposed to two of the most critical commodities of our time, not just copper at the centre of everything moving forward for electrification, but also water as a critical enabler to the region in which we operate. So we'll take a look at what the project is now pushing towards on a pre-feasibility and speak more about what we've just established, which is Wasco Water, a new dedicated water subsidiary for Hot Chili. So quickly on copper, I think that most people are watching this space very, very closely. Certainly in the last 6 months, the fundamentals of copper have started to catch up on the market. So we sit here still in a moment where copper equities are still trading sideways, not really seeing the appreciation that's now being reflected in the increase in copper price, almost at the foothills of our next copper cycle, a secular bull run which is set to test the inelasticity of supply. This will be a very different cycle. It will be very different to the last, which was dominated by demand out of China. This will be about lack of supply, and so a very different cycle is about to beset the industry. And so it's very rare to have projects that are near-term, meaningful, and able to feed into that small amount of elasticity that the world has in its development pipeline. So quickly, as a recap on Costa Fuego, a few things have occurred in the last 3 months. A resource upgrade. We're now pushing this resource at over 1 billion tonnes, 800 million tonnes in the measured and indicated classification. But this is large. This is sitting as a top 10 undeveloped project with very strong economic numbers that I went through last year at this symposium. Very low capital intensity because it's reflecting a very, very low risk project. It's on the coastline, it's not at 4,000 metres altitude, and so we have dramatic advantages with not having to build seawater pipelines and large desalination plants because we have older ore bodies that process well with seawater. So that's made all of those advantages position this project for first in line production out of the plus 100,000 tonne per annum copper projects that are coming outside of the majors. There's only 6, we are one of them. So just recently, the company was able to pivot towards almost what I can describe as now our final sprint to the finish line, to complete our pre-feasibility at the end of this year, to bring forward an equivalent level of study on our water assets, which we'll talk about shortly, and to bring forward the commencement of the bankable feasibility. We're looking to position this into production in 2028, and we're being very well supported by the capital markets. Just recently, we completed a very, very heavily oversubscribed institutional raising with treasury of around $35 million that is being directed towards this push on both development and growth. So what we have now is the ability to not look over our shoulders, to deliver this efficiently, and if we can, then we will certainly be figuring in significant exposure to beta or underlying commodity price. And that's what we're really after when we've developed something so large. Really, the driving force behind our ability to deliver this near term is the advanced permitting situation. Water is by far a standout asset of the company, which we're now starting to quantify. We're starting to isolate into a subsidiary company and prepare for its monetization to assist in funding Costa Fuego to be built. That's off the back of power connection, easement corridors, surface rights, and basically all of the necessary permits now in front of the submission of an EIA, which we intend to deliver mid-next year. But that low elevation location really is key. This separates us from large projects being developed at 4,000 metres that suffer from very large capital blowouts, very long development timelines. This is a very, very low-risk option for the copper sector with scale. Central processing that will feed a mine-to-port solution, which now has some colour around it. Hot Chili also recently being able to deliver an MOU to contribute 20% towards a plus $4 million bankable study to expand the existing port facilities into a bulk concentrate terminal. So this is about Hot Chili positioning itself at the gateway to the Wasco Valley, not just from a water perspective, but also from a port perspective and being a key partner to Las Losas port facility. The resource, as I mentioned, has been upgraded. It continues to build, and we continue to pursue smart growth as we look to further enhance the mine life. And really, as I've said in a few interviews, you don't stop enhancing a mine life and building NPV until you get to the project financing table, and that's what we're investing in at the moment. The resource is positioned very firmly within the top 10, one of the few low-risk options. Grade, as I mentioned, this is really the grade profile of all the oncoming supply. 0.4%, 0.5%. This is the new norm coming for the industry, and given the continued 2.5% decline in annual head grade of production globally, this is going to be something that is going to be part of that inelasticity in supply response to this coming cycle. Just quickly again on the numbers, it packs a lot of punch. 95,000 tonnes of annual copper production, backed up with 50,000 ounces of gold. At the moment, over a 16-year mine life, I imagine that will grow in the pre-feasibility. Low strip ratios, and more importantly, one of the lowest capital intensities in the sector because of that location and infrastructure advantage. Skipping approximately $1 billion in the build of something that will put out this type of metal. Very exposed to copper price, effectively every 10 cents a pound above the $3.85 per pound long-term prices we studied at, you're adding about $100 million US of net profit after tax onto this project. So it is very, very leveraged to copper price. If we were to take a poll of our NPV at spot now, you'd be talking about an NPV of around 1.7 to 1.8 billion. So as I mentioned, the real strength is that this is a low-cost project to develop with short development timeframes because of its low elevation. And that capital intensity is really only peered by projects that are in that similar position. But by far, what makes this stand out outside of elevation is the fact that we have a water license. Over 10 years to secure the company's maritime concession to extract seawater for seawater processing on this project has really, I guess, put a platform under us to also investigate what the wider strategic opportunity of those water licenses represent. On a metric, we are an Australian developer. We trade 85% of our liquidity in the Australian market, and we're still valued well behind our North American counterparts. And the pool is getting smaller and smaller as we go here. Recently seeing Rex Minerals with an all-cash offer just yesterday mounted on that. Certainly the Australian pool of large developers numbers 3 now upon successful takeover of Rex Minerals. So it's really an Australian-born developer that is really pushing hard into the North American market. It's where our future lies, and aiming to eventually fund this project in the next couple of years. As I mentioned on the exploration front, we're being very choosy about our targets. Some of our very high priority targets, things that have lookalike signatures to stunning discoveries recently in Lunahuasi with NGX and Philo. We're also looking at targets that sit right next door in and amongst our infrastructure footprint at our central processing location, the Productora deposit. And we're also continuing, as we have for 14 years now, in our consolidation efforts on this part of the coastline. We've made a very strong move into the historical Damako Mining Centre, a mining centre that boasts 4 porphyry deposits, almost exclusively just exploited for oxide mineralisation. So obviously the sulphide content in and amongst those mines is of very much interest to Hot Chili as it looks to build this project into the 20 to 30 year timeframe. ESG has always been a focus for the company. We continue to support orphanages. We've expanded our mental health program in the local valley and in the towns of Ionar, Freirina, Wasco, and really all of the central belt that the company will be operating in. This has been over a 10-year investment, and this is about working with the community, and one of the key reasons why Hot Chili is elevating this project almost to a project that is partnering with the local communities in which we operate. And that really is about water. So over a year ago, and at this conference, we discussed water as almost an idea, a concept. What could we do with our licenses? What do they represent? Is there a market? How strategic are these things? Water supply for Costa Fuego. We delivered in Q1 this year a concept study that outlined 4,000 litres per second of desalinated water supply from undeveloped mining projects alone. And that was out without agricultural or other usages within that area. And why it's unique is because we're in one of the most water-distressed regions of the world that is also the most prolific copper supply regions of the world. And the Wasco region contains 6 major undeveloped copper projects, including the 6th largest undeveloped copper project in the world, which is Nueva Union, sitting about 40 kilometres from Costa Fuego. And what surprised us was that we found that we had the only granted maritime concession in the region, the only surface rights on the coast, easement corridors to build the central spine of a water pipeline, and so almost the perfect ingredients to investigate what the Chilean government has been promoting, which is multi-user, shared infrastructure projects that can alleviate this access to water issue in the north of the country that is really one of the key reasons what is holding back copper supply. And so we've now put that study out, confirmed a potential market base, indicated that we would be looking to split off our water assets into a separate company, and that's just what we have done. Wasco Water was established and announced to the market on Monday. That is a joint venture between Hot Chili and its original iron ore partner, CMP, the largest iron ore producer in Chile, our original project partner at Productora, where Costa Fuego began. And so in honouring the joint venture relationship and the ownership of those water assets, we've transferred it into a separate subsidiary that will handle that as a focus area for the company going forward. And so we are very much being clear that we are investigating this for monetization and funding optionality, that this could be one of a number of unique aspects to the company, that not only are we very low risk and low elevation and don't require desalinated water for processing, but we have an asset within the company that may well be able to fund our copper project and fund a large component of our equity side. And that's what we're currently engaged in discussions with Tier 1 infrastructure partners that finance, build, operate these type of large water projects in Chile. And we look at deals recently announced in the market where Antofagasta effectively outsourced their infrastructure to a consortium of Amar Water and Transelect for $600 million US, saving the company $380 million US on the capital to build their stage 2 expansion of Centinela. And so a number of things are sort of presenting to the company and how we might move this forward, but certainly what this represents to us is water security. We are a 700 litre per second direct foundation offtake partner of Wasco Water, our subsidiary. So that is something that we're now advancing, collecting up all of these water assets that you can see in front of you on the coastline, our second maritime application that will allow for discharge of brine and for us to combine the supply of seawater and desalinated water to a level of almost 8,000 litres per second with final approvals. So it is very much something that will bring significant benefit to the communities of INR through the supply of offtake water to those communities and also unlocking multiples of billions of dollars of capital savings and bring forward revenue potential generation out of this region and enable the supply of copper into this next cycle. So that 10-year advantage in all of that application time with no other maritime concession in the area really, I guess, allows us to dovetail that opportunity with the timeline of Costa Fuego. So our pathway is clear, pre-feasibility at the end of this year, feeding the commencement of a bankable study, the submission of our environmental impact assessment, which has seen 10 years of preparation, and that effectively has us first in line at project financing for a project of this scale towards the end of 2026. So I guess what we're really now just focused on is a very different phase for the company. It's about taking those key unique advantages that we have, the low elevation, the low capital intensity, the saltwater processing, and this embedded water asset, and realising that to put a major copper project into production before the end of the decade. So thank you very much, and very much look forward to answering any questions at our booth. Thank you.